10 celebrities from the golden age who cheated on their co-stars. The third is devastating. Studio executives spent millions to conceal the secrets that were hidden behind the glitz and glamour of Hollywood's golden age. When the cameras stopped rolling, the scandals that destroyed careers, heartbreaking betrayals, and passionate affairs began to unfold. The reality behind closed doors was far more scandalous than anything that ever made it to the big screen, even though America revered these larger-than-life celebrities as models of virtue and romance. We're revealing the most explosive secret in Hollywood today. Not just casual flings, but the forbidden romances that sparked between married co-stars when directors shouted, "Cut!" These were intense, ruinous relationships that destroyed reputations, ended marriages, and, in one tragic instance, cost a well-liked actress almost everything she valued. Do you believe that today's tabloids are scandalous? Hollywood's golden age established the guidelines for hiding celebrity transgressions. Studio fixers went to tremendous lengths to preserve the meticulously crafted images of their valuable stars while working non-stop to keep these affairs hidden from the public. Through a web of deceit that is nearly unthinkable today, photographers were bought off, hotel employees were silenced, and in some horrifying cases, even pregnancies were intricately hidden. It's not just the scandal that makes these stories so captivating. It's realizing how these outlawed romances changed Hollywood history and how the beloved movies of today were frequently made in the midst of emotional upheaval as real-life affairs unfolded in between takes. Acting wasn't always the chemistry that enthralls us on screen. Even as the cameras rolled, the obvious signs of passion were uncontrollable. Keep watching as we uncover the 10 most shocking co-star affairs from Hollywood's golden age, and you'll see why one film historian once said, "The real dramas in Hollywood never made it to the screen. They happened in dressing rooms and on location shoots, where passion overruled professional boundaries and sometimes destroyed lives in the process." Tales of love, treachery, and, in the case of number 3, a tragic cost that altered one star's life forever. And heritage. I'm sorry you didn't. Why not? Well, I haven't allowed myself to consider that. The first is Loretta Young, the secret child, and Clark Gable. Studio executives had no idea how their on-location romance would change people's lives when they cast Clark Gable and Loretta Young in Call of the Wild in 1935. Gable was the dominant force in Hollywood and was already wed to his second wife, Maria Rhea Longham. Young was a devoted Catholic with a strong moral code and a wholesome appearance. The cold shoot in Washington state was when their affair started. The 22-year-old youngster was unable to resist Gable's charm despite being cut off from society and prying eyes. The assistant director of the movie claimed that the seclusion produced a bubble in which common sense seemed to be non-existent. They believed that nobody would ever find out. But when Young found out she was pregnant, reality fell apart. A scandal that could end both stars' careers. One of Hollywood's most intricate cover-ups ensued. After vanishing from the public eye and secretly giving birth to a daughter, Young planned an odd adoption of her own child. Later, she brought Judy, whom she claimed to be her recently adopted daughter, back to Hollywood. Later, a makeup artist who worked with Young disclosed that it was a lifelong secret with a child at its core, not just an affair. Before anyone arrived at the house, Loretta would apply makeup to her own daughter, darkening her eyebrows and reshaping her ears, which were exactly like Gable's. It was devastating how far she went to conceal the truth. Young kept up the adoption narrative for decades, even with Judy. Judy didn't realize the truth until 1966, when she heard a stranger comment on how much she resembled Clark Gable. Young eventually revealed the secret she had kept for over 30 years when pressed. The success of the cover-up is what makes this affair so noteworthy. Young's career endured in a time before social media and digital manipulation. Gable never acknowledged his daughter in public, and the studio system did everything in its power to safeguard its priceless assets. Judy Lewis, the product of this secret affair, later became an actress herself and wrote in her memoir, "I lived my life as a lie. My birth was a shameful secret that had to be hidden at all costs. And I never understood why until I was an adult, looking into a mirror and seeing Clark Gable staring back at me." The affair between Gable and Young didn't just create momentary scandal. It created a living secret that 3 people carried for decades, reshaping their lives in ways that reverberated far beyond that remote film set in 1935. What I feel I should have felt long ago when I was very young, when I could say to myself that this was how love was. 2. Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. Erotic vagrancy. Perhaps no Hollywood affair has ever captured public attention like the explosive romance between Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton on the set of Cleopatra in 1963. What began as the most expensive film ever made quickly became the backdrop for the scandal of the century. Taylor was married to her fourth husband, singer Eddie Fisher, whom she had notoriously stolen from America's sweetheart Debbie Reynolds. Just a few years earlier, Burton was married to Sybil Williams, his wife of 14 years. None of these commitments mattered once Taylor and Burton locked eyes. Their attraction was immediate and overwhelming. The film's director, Joseph L. Emanuik, later claimed, "I would say cut and they would still be kissing." It wasn't a performance. It was the real thing happening right there on film. The production became secondary to their burgeoning affair, with shooting schedules frequently delayed because the stars disappeared to their dressing rooms together. What distinguished this affair from others in Hollywood history was that they made absolutely no attempt to hide it. They flaunted their passion openly in restaurants and hotels across Rome where the film was being shot. Photos of their intimate moments splashed across newspapers worldwide, creating a media firestorm unlike anything Hollywood had seen before. The scandal reached such proportions that the Vatican issued a formal condemnation accusing Taylor of erotic vagrancy and condemning their behavior as a threat to the institution of marriage. Even the U.S. government got involved, with a congressman denouncing their moral degradation on the floor of the House of Representatives. A Cleopatra crew member later revealed they didn't care who they hurt as long as they had each other. It was like watching two people possessed. Nothing else mattered. Not their spouses, not their careers, not even the millions of dollars at stake in the production. They were consumed by each other. The affair destroyed both their marriages. Taylor divorced Pfizer. Burton divorced Williams. And in 1964, the scandalous lovers married, but their passion remained as volatile as it had been on set. They divorced in 1974, remarried in 1975, and divorced again in 1976. Their relationship as dramatic off-screen as any role they ever played. Film historian David Thompson wrote, "Their affair didn't just change their lives, it transformed Hollywood itself." After Burton and Taylor, the public's expectation of star behavior changed. The era of carefully managed images was giving way to a new, more transparent celebrity culture. Their legendary passion produced some of cinema's most memorable collaborations, including Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Where their real-life volatility infused their performances with an authenticity that couldn't be faked. But it also left tremendous pain in its wake for their abandoned spouses, for their children, and ultimately for each other. You revealed the big secret that your mother is Ingrid Bergman. Laughter. The other big secret is your father is the great filmmaker Roberto Rossellini. You grew up in Rome. Thank you. 3. Ingrid Bergman and Roberto Rossellini. The heartbreaking price. Now we come to the most devastating affair on our list. One that cost its star nearly everything she held dear. When Ingrid Bergman traveled to Italy in 1949 to film Stromboli with acclaimed neo-realist director Roberto Rossellini, she was at the pinnacle of Hollywood stardom. Fresh from classics like Casablanca and Notorious, Bergman embodied wholesomeness and grace to millions of adoring fans. Rossellini was married with a son, and Bergman was married to neurosurgeon Peter Lindstrom, with whom she had a 10-year-old daughter, Pia. But within weeks of meeting, Bergman and Rossellini were embroiled in a passionate affair. Their remote filming location on the volcanic island of Stromboli provided little privacy, and news of their relationship quickly reached the press. Then came the announcement that shook Hollywood. Bergman was pregnant with Rossellini's child. In an era when morality clauses were standard in studio contracts, this was more than scandal. It was professionals. The backlash was immediate and merciless. Bergman was denounced from pulpits across America. Theater owners removed her pictures from lobbies and refused to show her films. Most shockingly, she was even condemned on the floor of the United States Senate, where Colorado Senator Edwin Johnson declared her a powerful influence for evil and Hollywood's apostle of degradation. The most devastating consequence came when her ex-husband Lindstrom refused to let Bergman see their daughter, Pia. The courts granted him full custody and Bergman was effectively separated from her firstborn child for many years. A close friend of Bergman's later revealed she gave up her career, reputation, and child. All for a man who left her anyway. I've never seen someone pay such a terrible price for following their heart. There were nights when I'd find her sobbing uncontrollably, looking at photos of Pia, wondering if her daughter would ever forgive her. Bergman and Rossellini married in May 1950 following her divorce from Lindström. They had 3 children together, a son and twin daughters, one of whom is actress Isabella Rossellini. But the relationship that had cost Bergman so dearly didn't last. Rossellini began having affairs and they divorced in 1957. The cruel irony is that just as her marriage to Rossellini was ending, Bergman was finally welcomed back to Hollywood, winning an Academy Award for Anastasia in 1956. Her exile had lasted 7 years. In her absence, social attitudes had begun to shift, and the studio system that had once enforced such rigid moral codes was losing its grip on the industry. Film critic Roger Ebert later wrote, "Bergman's treatment reveals the stunning hypocrisy of the era." Male celebrities frequently had extramarital affairs with no repercussions. Bergman's career was all but ruined because he fell in love with the wrong man at the wrong time, but the punishment was far worse than the alleged offense. The scars persisted even after Bergman rebuilt her career and made amends with her daughter Pia. Years later, when asked if she had regrets, Bergman replied simply, "I have no regrets. I regret the things I didn't do, not what I did. I've lived my life. I made my choices. How can you regret being true to yourself even when the cost is so high like it? I love it. You know, it's hard to believe that a girl like you ever came from Missouri." 4. Joan Crawford and Clark Gable. Hollywood's longest affair. Clark Gable appears twice on our list and with good reason. His decades-long affair with Joan Crawford stands as one of Hollywood's most enduring secret relationships. Beginning when they co-starred in Dance Fools Dance in 1931, their passion continued through 8 films together and multiple marriages to other people. MGM's head Louis B. Mayer actively encouraged their on-screen pairings because of their undeniable chemistry while simultaneously working to ensure their off-screen relationship remained hidden from the public. A studio publicist later revealed, Mayer knew about Crawford and Gable from the beginning. He simply ensured that they were never apprehended. Private hotel entrances, cars with darkened windows, and stand-ins who pretended to be them in public alongside their real spouses. Everything was planned by the studio. Even after Gable met and wed actress Carole Lombard in 1939, their affair continued. Lombard was surprisingly aware of her husband's continued attraction to Crawford, according to Crawford's personal assistant. Carole once told Joan directly, "You can have him on set, but he always comes home to me." It was the strangest détente in Hollywood. During the filming of They All Kissed the Bride, Gable and Crawford reportedly rekindled their physical relationship following Lombard's tragic death in a 1942 plane crash. According to a wardrobe supervisor, they had to lie to everyone else in order to avoid each other. All bets were off after Carole passed away. It wasn't meant to be, but Joan hoped she might finally have him for good. Gable never gave Crawford her whole attention, and she eventually grew weary of waiting. According to those who knew them, they had a complex emotional bond that lasted until Gable's death in 1960, even after their professional collaborations ended. Crawford's daughter Christina, in an unpublished section of her memoir, wrote, "My mother kept a special box of photographs of her and Gable. On the anniversary of his death, each year she would take them out, pour a drink, and lock herself in her room for hours. Whatever they had shared never really ended for her." Their affair spanned nearly 30 years, weathered multiple marriages, and remained largely hidden from the public. A testament to both the power of the studio system to protect its stars and the genuine connection between two of Hollywood's most iconic figures. When I hold your hand, there's some little something that I miss. Music, what has become of the warmth in your smile? Singing, 5. Lana Turner and Tyrone Power. The passionate fling. When Lana Turner and Tyrone Power co-starred in Johnny Apollo in 1940, they created one of Hollywood's most visually stunning couples. He was already married to French actress Annabella, and at the height of his fame as 20th Century Fox's biggest romantic lead, Turner was just 19 and already gaining notoriety as a sex symbol. Their attraction was instantaneous and overwhelming. Turner later admitted in private correspondence, "It wasn't a kiss for the cameras. The director would yell, 'Cut,' and we wouldn't stop. It was real. We couldn't stop." According to a set electrician who worked on the film, they turned a studio lot into a battlefield of lust. They would disappear into his dressing room between takes and emerged disheveled and glowing. Everyone knew, but no one talked. Power was too valuable to the studio, and Turner was becoming their next big star. What made their affair particularly risky was P's marriage to Annabella, which was highly publicized and popular with fans. 20th Century Fox had invested heavily in presenting Power as the ideal husband, and news of infidelity would have damaged his carefully crafted image. The studio took extraordinary measures to keep their relationship under wraps. A studio security guard later claimed, "We were instructed to warn them if Annabella ever arrived unannounced." In fact, if she showed up, a special bell in his dressing room would ring. They had it down to a science. The affair burned intensely but briefly. By the time filming wrapped, both stars had moved on to new projects and new romances. However, those who worked with them in later years claimed they always maintained a special connection. A makeup artist who worked with Turner in the 1950s revealed whenever P's name came up, her eyes would get this far away look. Once after a few drinks, she told me he was the one man who could match her passion for passion. Then she, clears throat, said something I never forgot. "Some flames burn out. The ones with tie left scars." Their brief but intense affair exemplifies the environment that existed on studio lots during Hollywood's golden era, where proximity, passion, and opportunity created the perfect conditions for romance, regardless of existing commitments. "Why do you say these things to me? You know I love you more than anything in the world." 6. Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier. From affair to madness. The affair between Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier began in 1936 during the production of Fire Over England and led to one of Hollywood's most celebrated yet troubled marriages. Both were married to others at the time. Leigh to barrister Lee Holman and Olivier to actress Jill Esmond. Their connection was immediate and all-consuming. Olivier later wrote in his memoirs, "I couldn't help myself with Vivien. A man couldn't. She was so gorgeous, so completely appealing. I had the feeling that I was a moth attracted to a flame that would eventually devour me." They eventually divorced their spouses and married each other in 1940, which sets their affair apart from many others on our list. With their collaborations in movies like Hamilton Woman and their Shakespearean stage performances, their union was hailed as the ideal union of theatrical royalty, leaving an artistic legacy that seemed to justify their scandalous beginnings. However, the passion that started with treachery ultimately came apart in tragedy. Their relationship was strained by Leigh's increasingly unpredictable behavior, which was later identified as bipolar disorder. Furthermore, a number of biographers claim that Leigh kept having affairs with co-stars during their marriage, drawing a painful parallel to how their relationship started. According to a stage manager who collaborated with both celebrities in the late 1940s, their love began with treachery and ended in insanity. Olivier had to witness Vivien do to him what they had done to their first spouses, which was a terrible irony. Even worse, he had to watch her gradually spiral into mental illness, which made their shared passion a prison. In 1960, after 20 years of dating, they got divorced. While Leigh continued to battle her mental health until her death from tuberculosis in 1967, Olivier went on to marry actress Joan Plowright. Theater director Peter Hall once said, "They paid for their passion with years of torment." What began as the most glamorous affair in theatrical history ended as a cautionary tale about the price of getting exactly what you want. Their story serves as a reminder that, even in cases where an affair ends in marriage, the circumstances surrounding its start can have a lasting impact. As Olivier himself wrote years later, "Vivien and I were consumed by a fire of our own making. It gave us unimaginable heights of passion and depths of pain that I suspect neither of us ever fully recovered from. They're holding the plane for us. Goodbye, Jarrows." 7. Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. Hollywood's open secret. The 26-year affair between Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn stands as Hollywood's longest-run open secret. Beginning when they co-starred in Woman of the Year in 1942, their relationship continued until Tracy's death in 1967, spanning 9 films and nearly 3 decades. What made their affair unique was Tracy's refusal to divorce his wife Louise. A devout Catholic, Tracy remained married despite living separately from Louise for most of their later years. This created the strange situation where Hepburn, one of Hollywood's biggest stars, existed as an unacknowledged partner, unable to claim her relationship publicly or even attend Tracy's funeral. A director who worked with them on multiple films noted they weren't just partners, they were each other's second lives. It was the strangest arrangement everyone in Hollywood knew, but in public, they maintained this elaborate fiction that they were merely frequent co-stars with exceptional chemistry. Studio executives actively encouraged their on-screen collaborations while simultaneously helping them maintain privacy. Their films together, including classics like Adam's Rib and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, were built around their natural rapport, with directors often incorporating elements of their real relationship into their characters. Hepburn's niece, Katherine Tahn, who co-starred with them in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Tracy's final film, later revealed they had developed this private language, these looks and gestures that communicated volumes. Sometimes watching them work was like eavesdropping on a private conversation. The camera captured something genuine that wasn't acting at all. Perhaps the most poignant aspect of their relationship was Hepburn's devotion during Tracy's final years as his health declined due to heart disease and diabetes. Though they never lived together permanently, she essentially put her life on hold to care for him during his illnesses, all while maintaining the public fiction that they were merely colleagues. Director Stanley Kramer recalled, during the filming of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Spencer was very ill. In exchange for the studio insuring Tracy, who was otherwise uninsurable due to his health, Katharine agreed to work on the movie for a pittance. Then, in order to reduce his stress, she would arrive early every day to make sure everything was ready for him. Because she was unable to publicly acknowledge her role in his life, her devotion was all the more remarkable. Hepburn avoided discussing their relationship in public for many years after Tracy's passing. Known for her fierce independence and outspokenness, the woman had kept her greatest love story mostly private out of respect for Tracy's marriage and faith. When she finally did, she wrote simply in her 1991 autobiography, "I loved Spencer Tracy. I would have done anything for him." In contrast to the more explosive scandals on our list, their affair was handled discreetly and with dignity. Evidence that a private realm that respected all parties could be maintained even in the fishbowl of Hollywood fame. 8. Music. John Gilbert and Greta Garbo. The silent film controversy. While filming Flesh and the Devil in 1926, Greta Garbo and John Gilbert fell deeply in love, which led to one of the most explosive scandals of the silent era. Despite being married to his second wife, Leah Tatrick Joy, Gilbert continued to pursue his mysterious Swedish co-star with unwavering tenacity. Flesh and the Devil and their on-screen kisses continue to rank among the most authentically erotic scenes in silent film. We didn't need to direct those scenes. They were genuinely consumed with each other. Sometimes we would just let the camera roll and capture whatever happened between them. William Daniels, the film's cinematographer, later recalled, "We didn't need to direct those scenes. They were genuinely consumed with each other." What made their affair especially noteworthy was how swiftly it developed from professional collaboration to all-consuming passion. Gilbert proposed to Garbo and left his wife within weeks of their first meeting. He purchased a mansion for them and organized a lavish wedding because, according to MGM employees, he was desperate to legitimize their relationship. Garbo, however, was always mysterious and fiercely independent. She wanted the passion, not the paperwork, a studio executive later said. He was literally left waiting at the altar by her. Guests were arriving, the wedding was planned, and Garbo just failed to show up. In front of the entire industry, Gilbert was humiliated and devastated. Their affair persisted sporadically despite this public humiliation, which fueled their roles in later films together. For successful films were made as a result of their professional collaboration, but their personal relationship grew more unstable. Gilbert's career fell apart when sound movies came along because his voice wasn't appropriate. The power dynamics between them drastically changed as Garbo's star continued to rise, adding another complex layer to their already turbulent relationship. In 1936, Gilbert passed away at the age of 38. According to film historian Robert Osborne, what started out as one of Hollywood's most passionate affairs ended as a cautionary tale. Gilbert never recovered from his obsession with Garbo, professionally or personally. She was the great love and the great devastation of his life. His alcoholism destroyed his health, which many close to him blamed on his turbulent relationship with Garbo. In keeping with her reclusive personality, Garbo never went to his funeral and hardly mentioned him in public after that. However, according to those close to her, she kept a picture of him in her apartment until 1990, when she passed away. Their affair serves as a reminder that, even in the days before social media and international paparazzi, celebrities' private lives could still turn into public spectacles with repercussions that occasionally outlasted their careers. You can't try, though. You'll make an effort. You'll make an effort. You can't give them all a kiss. 9. Robert Wagner and Debbie Reynolds. The unanticipated relationship. While filming Say One For Me in 1959, America's sweetheart Debbie Reynolds and the hottie Robert Wagner had one of Hollywood's most fascinating, albeit little-known, rumored affairs. The timing of this alleged liaison is what makes it so intriguing. It happened soon after Reynolds' humiliating public divorce from Eddie Fisher, who had abandoned her for Elizabeth Taylor in the most infamous love triangle in Hollywood at the time. During this time, Wagner had a romantic relationship with Natalie Wood, despite their brief separation. A makeup artist who worked on the movie claimed that they were both married. In addition, they were hurt and bored. Wagner was involved in an on-again, off-again relationship with Natalie, and Debbie was still in shock over the Eddie Fisher humiliation. They took solace in one another. Reynolds and Wagner reportedly maintained a high level of secrecy throughout their relationship, in contrast to many of the affairs on our list. According to a production assistant, it never took place on set. Although they met late at night at a private bungalow in Malibu, they were consummate professionals while filming. Everything was set up by the studio. Property where they wouldn't be seen, drivers who refused to speak. The success with which this alleged affair was concealed from the public is what makes it so noteworthy. The studio's ability to protect this relationship during a time when Reynolds was the subject of intense scrutiny due to the Pfizer-Taylor scandal showed how powerful the Hollywood publicity machine is even today. The rumor was never verified or refuted by Reynolds. However, she wrote cryptically about this time in her 2013 autobiography. I took solace in unexpected places after Eddie. I'm not the only one who can tell some stories. Wagner has also never responded to the rumors. Following the public humiliation with Eddie and Elizabeth, Reynolds' close friend later told a biographer that Debbie needed to feel desirable once more. She discovered that it was healing rather than love with Wagner. And that can be more significant at times. This alleged liaison, which was carried out in secret and without the public drama that marked many Hollywood relationships, is representative of the innumerable unconfirmed liaisons that most likely took place during the studio era. Only in the dim recollections of those who labored in the background are they remembered today. We are expecting a child. 10. Desi Arnaz, the serial philanderer, and several co-stars. Our last entry is about a pattern of infidelity that ultimately ended one of the most cherished marriages on television, rather than a single affair. Desi Arnaz, Lucille Ball's real-life husband, was having multiple affairs with co-stars, showgirls, and even extras from their popular show, while Lucille Ball enthralled America as the endearing, crazy housewife in I Love Lucy. The bitter irony was that, despite the fact that millions of Americans welcomed Lucy and Desi into their living rooms every week as the ideal couple, Arnaz's persistent infidelity was causing their marriage to collapse behind the scenes. Several Delu employees claim that Arnaz did little to conceal his infidelity from the production team. A set designer for I Love Lucy disclosed that he managed a hotel room behind the scenes while playing the devoted husband on television. We were all aware. The sad thing was that Lucy was also aware. Occasionally, she would receive calls at the studio from women he was seeing, who were either attempting to harm her or warning her. Her expression back then was heartbreaking. The difference between Arnaz's private and public selves is what made his actions so startling. He portrayed the occasionally irritated but devoted Ricky Ricardo on screen, and he and Ball created one of the most romantic off-screen marriages in television history. His infidelity was so widespread that it was widely known in Hollywood. Betty White, who worked with both actors, remarked, "Everyone loved Desi. He was charming, talented, and impossible to stay angry with. But his weakness for women was his undoing." The saddest part was watching Lucy try to pretend she didn't know when everyone around them was aware of what was happening. The strain eventually became too much, and despite creating a groundbreaking show